This is how to play for the game Credulous. First, before you start playing, you want to make sure that you have all the resources that you'll need to play the game. There should be 5 sheets that you need to print out. There'll be 3 boards that you print out, and then there will be 2 sheets of cards that you're going to then cut up into 16 individual cards. There should be 4 information cards, 4 sidewalk lad cards, 4 legitimate cards, and 4 Mentos Party cards. In addition to the cards and the boards, you're going to need some tokens for each player. Each player is going to need about 15 tokens of a color unique to them, though players are never limited by the number of tokens they have in the game, so in some rare circumstances, players may need more. To start the game, each player will receive one of the organizations. In this How to Play video, I'm going to be showing a 3-player game, so we won't be using the sidewalk lads. I'm just going to put these off to the side. So we'll give one player the information cards and the pink cubes. We'll give one player the legitimate cards and the white cubes, and one player the Mentos Party cards and the blue cubes. Also, you want to make sure that you have the round 1 board that's to start the game. The round 2 and 3 boards will need to be put off to the side. They'll be used for the later rounds. The game is played over 3 rounds, and each player's objective is to obtain more influence points than any other player. Players will receive influence points for every social media user they spread their story to each round. At the end of the 3rd round, they will add all the points they've gained throughout the game together, and the player with the most influence points will win. To start each round, each player will have to select one of their story cards to play. So I'll just show legitimate stories here. On the story cards, there is 3 important things that players will have to note. Up here is the subject area of the story. This is the magnifying glass shows the believability of the story, and the fist shows the impact of the story. Over here is just flavor text for the story. So this side of the card does not affect gameplay. When selecting your story, you'll have to keep all 3 of these things in mind. Believability is how likely you'll be able to spread your story to people, and impact is how quickly you'll be able to spread your story across the board. Each player selects one story, so legitimate will select this story, places it face down. Mentos Party selects their story, and the informations select their story. Once each player has placed down their story face down, every player will reveal simultaneously what story they chose to play this round. In this way, no player will know what any other player has played until they've already placed down their story. Next, you'll have to determine a start player for the round. The start player is the player with the least impact. So in this case, you can see that legitimate only has 1 impact, whereas informationals have 2, and the Mentos Party has 3. So legitimate will be the start player for this round. After determining the start player, turns will go around in a clockwise order around the table. In the case of a tie for start player, consult the rulebook, and there is a list of the different organizations and who breaks the tie. Next, each player will have to place 1 token on the board to start spreading their story. Each of the spaces on the board represents a social media user, and when a token is on a social media user, it represents that that social media user has heard and believes a story that that player was spreading that round. Social media users may only believe a story if they are credulous to that story. To determine whether a social media user is credulous to a story, you must compare their research value to the story's believability value. Beside each social media user, there's a research value. This shows how much research they're going to do before they believe a story. Each social media user's research value must be equal to or lower than the believability value of the story. Also, some social media users have a subject area of expertise. For example, this social media here has an expertise in environmental. This social media user has an expertise in political, and this social media user has an expertise in medical. Any social media user that has an expertise in something will never believe a story of the same subject. So with legitimate here sharing a political story, they will never be able to spread their story to any of the social media users that have an expertise in political. In this case, legitimate has a subject area of political and a believability value of 2. Looking at the board, there is no space or no social media user on the board that has a research value of higher than 2. This means that every social media user is credulous to legitimate stories, with the exception of users that have an expertise in political stories. Legitimate will choose one social media user that is credulous to their story, and this is the social media user that they will spread out from. So let's say they choose here. Next, we go around the table, and Mentos party will now place one token on a social media user that's credulous to their story. The Mentos party has a believability of only 0 and a subject area of environmental. So they may only place their token on social media users that have 0 or lower research, which are just going to be the ones around here. And, of course, they may not place on any social media users with an environmental expertise. So let's say they place here. Next, going around, the informations. Again, believability only 1, so they won't be able to place on any 2s, and a subject area of medical, so they won't be able to place on any medical. And they could decide to place here. All right, we get back to legitimate now, and now each organization or each player will spread out from the tokens that they've already placed. They can spread to any connected credulous users. The impact value of their story shows how many new tokens they may place each time they get to take a turn. So legitimate has an impact of 1, meaning that they can place 1 new token this turn. The social media they place their new token on must be connected to the social media users that already know their story. So legitimate can place here, here, or here, and since all of those have a research value of 2 or lower, and none of them are political, legitimate may place in any of these places. So they'll place here. Coming around to the Mentos party, same thing, although they have an impact of 3, meaning that they can spread and place 3 new tokens this round. So they can place here, here, and here. Again, they can't place on any of the environmental areas, and they cannot place on any of the areas with greater than 0 research value. Also, they may not place on an area that already is occupied by a token. Players cannot share spaces. Continuing along, informations will once again place their tokens, and they get to place 2 because their impact value is 2, so they can place there, and they can place here. And this will continue around. Players will continue around, spreading their influence based on their impact value. In this case, it's now the Mentos party's turn, and there is no spaces that they may spread to anymore. All connected spaces to the Mentos party's existing tokens are either occupied by another token or are not credulous to their story. In this case, the Mentos party is just skipped over. In which case we'll go to the informations. The informations are in the same situation. Legitimate now may still continue placing pieces. So place here. Again, skip over Mentos party, skip over informations. Legitimate place it again. Now, legitimate is also in the same situation where they may not place any new tokens. Once all players are not capable of placing any new tokens, the round ends. At this point, count up the number of social media users that each organization spread to. For each social media user they spread to, they will get 1 influence point. Make sure to write this down on a piece of paper because you'll need to add all your influence points together at the end of the game. Then you may clear off the board of all the tokens, giving these back to their players. The stories that people used during the round will be put off to the side. They are no longer to be used in this game, and players will have to choose from the rest of their stories for the second and third round, and take the round 1 board away and replace it with the round 2 board. Round 2 and 3 will function in the same way as round 1, but at the end of round 3, the players' influence points will be added together, and the player with the most influence points will win the game.